And we are live. Welcome to another episode of Erik Wait Whiskey Studies Live. We'll be talking about Bunnahabhain Distillery tonight. Have a little bit of a quiz, and let's get into it. So Bunnahabhain is probably now my favorite distillery on Isla. It used to be Ardbeg. If you've been following me for a while, been watching, I still like the core range, still love the core range. Ardbeg's core range might be my favorite core range, but overall, I'm probably heading more and more into Bunnahabhain territory in terms of my overall favorite distillery. Not only the core range, but all the special bottles. I have all of the core range bottles, and I've done a lot of reviews of their special releases. Of course, I toured the distillery back in 2018 and really loved it. If you want to watch, I did a live stream in which I covered their core range. Let's see. Here we go. This is what the thumbnail looks like. And I also talked about their special releases as well. So this week, I did a review of the Bunnahabhain 12 cask strength. The Bunnahabhain 12-year-old, 46% ABV whiskey, part of the core range, is the two I tend to recommend the most. People say, hey, recommend to me an Isla whiskey. I would say for non-peated, go with the Bunnahabhain 12-year-old. For peated, start with the Ardbeg 10-year-old. Tonight, however, I am drinking the Bunnahabhain Moyne Bordeaux red wine cask, bottled at 58.1% alcohol by volume. I've already reviewed this. Jeremy over at Sipper Social Club has also reviewed it, and I believe this was definitely in my top 10 last year. I can't remember if it was my number one for the year or not, but I think it was. I have not even opened these ones yet, but I can reach over and grab this without dropping anything. This is the Bunnahabhain Moyne Bordeaux finish. This is the 2013 edition of it. This was a fish eel edition from last year. This is bottled at 59.5. So Bordeaux cask, but it's a different ABV. So I don't think it's the same thing, just with a sort of a different label on it. I've got two of these. I was able to pick them up for $150 and actually received them really quickly from a shop in Edinburgh. I haven't opened those yet. I don't think I'm going to review. I think I'll review them because, why review something that's going to be almost near impossible to get? I try not to do that. This one, it has a slight red tinge to it. So if you're blind tasting whiskeys and you look at the color, see a slight red tinge to it. Pretty good chance that it has a red wine cask finish on it. However, I've seen some bourbons with a red tinge to it. Some of the Bookers have a red tinge to it. I don't know where they're getting that red color from. But anyway, hey, so I want to say hi to everyone who is tuning in. Derek K, thanks for tuning in. Mike Renke, thanks for tuning in. Dave Belcher, 60 Hertz, thanks for tuning in. Fraser Thistle, and anyone who is watching on the replay. And Grammy Young, thanks for tuning in. Wow. So I got to say, this is not my first glass of the evening. One of my favorite things to do is, in studying and reading, is to read about a winery chateau while drinking a glass from that winery or chateau, or drink a dram from a distillery. So particularly in the evening, after dinner, maybe kind of chilling out, relaxing by the fireplace, settling down. This is before you go to bed, get a book out, maybe get a pen, maybe some note cards so you can take some notes or do some underlining or highlight or whatever. Give yourself a little dram and just sort of chill out. So you get the association of the distillery with the whiskey. It ties memories together of the information you're reading with the whiskey, so that when you hear that distillery and you taste that whiskey, the association is there between the whiskey and what you're reading. This is years ago. They actually there was actually a test done. I think it was at UC Berkeley, if I recall correctly, where they had students drink a beer, not get drunk and hammered, but they had students drink a beer while studying and then have them take a test while drinking that same beer. And because of the associations between what they're studying and that beer, they actually had a better recall of what they had studied due to the connection between, or this is the theory anyway, between the beer and what they were studying. And so they had better recall. I mean, in one sense, it makes sense. There are songs you remember because they were in a movie, right? There are songs that you remember because you heard it at a dance with your girlfriend at the prom, or you were driving down the road, listening to it, or whatever reason. There's some sort of association between the song and some sort of event. There are songs that I remember when they were released because they're tied to where I was at in my life at that particular event. So in the same way that songs can be tied to a memory and have recall and pictures of relationships and smells and everything else, same thing can happen while reading about whiskey and just having a little bit. So I've been reading and studying today. Doing some empirical research, reading about Kentucky distilleries, and so I was having a little bit of Wild Turkey, a little bit of Jim Beam, a little bit of Jack Daniels, a little bit of other distilleries while I was reading and studying and taking notes. So this is not I'm fine, but I'm just saying I'm already halfway there before I even get into this first one. Hey, Alan, the whiskey friend, thanks for tuning in, man. Yes, yes. The Scotch malt whiskey tasting earlier this week. So here in the United States, the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society doesn't have the vaults that they have over in the UK. However, they do have these partner relationships with certain bars. There's one in San Francisco and there's one in San Jose here in the San Francisco Bay Area. If you're not familiar with the geography of the Bay Area, San Francisco, in terms of the overall bay, San Francisco is on the obviously on the coast on the west and about midway in the middle of the bay. San Jose is in the South Bay, Silicon Valley, so down there. Yes, I went there and had an absolutely fantastic time. It was great. Everything I was hoping for happened. There were about 20 or so people there. Number one, it wasn't just about the whiskeys; it was about the meetup, meeting people. I was kind of surprised. I got there a little bit early. You got to get a parking spot and all that. So this was last Sunday night, and I pulled up and I had my backpack. I had a backpack and a little backpack, and it had coins and business cards, my challenge coins, business cards with me, and met a gentleman before the bar had opened. And we're standing outside and we start chatting, that kind of a thing. And then I shook his hand. Yeah, my name's Erik, and start talking, and I mentioned something about my channel. He goes, oh, I thought you were Erik Wait. So I've had times where you're in someplace in the public, and someone's giving you the eyeball. They're like, keep looking at you, keep looking at you, keep looking at you, and it's kind of either like they think you're weird or something. But I've found sometimes I say, hi, how you doing? And then they'll say, are you Erik Wait? Yeah, I am. Oh, yeah, watch your channel. I've had it happen in oddest places, in parking lots. Mostly, I've had it happen at airports and stuff. But it happens. Anyway, so out of the 20 people there were probably 5 who knew who I was, who knew who I was, and are already subscribed. And so it's really, really nice to meet people. And, so the whiskeys were fantastic. We had 6 whiskeys. And then the following day, Ben and Scott on the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society, they talked about all the various whiskeys and that they went on sale like last Tuesday. But while the whiskeys were very, 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 very good, and I really, really liked them, what I enjoyed the most was the interaction with the people. And it's kind of funny, complete strangers, don't know these people, and yet everybody just comes across as really cool. just super, super nice, super friendly. And I really enjoyed asking other people, so how did you get into whiskey? Because I'm in California. This is wine country. There's wineries everywhere. I drive by a winery every day on my way to work, right? This is wine country. It's rarer to come across whiskey people. So it's just great to hear from them, their stories, their journey, where they're at and how they got into whiskey and so forth. And just had a really, really good time. Zach, who is a rep down in LA for Scotchman Whiskey Society, he was there. Super nice guy. He did a fantastic job of doing the presentation. And we were somewhat blind tasting the whiskeys. So we weren't told. Basically, you had a sheet and you had a choice. You could choose what distillery you thought it was. You could choose what the age of what you thought it was. And you could choose what you thought the casking was. Now, obviously, they're all cask strength. So, not your full, there's no added coloring. So, so choosing an ABV is not really going to be there. So, and some of the distilleries that the Scotch Malt Whisky Society does, you're never going to find bottles from those distilleries here in the United States. So the ability to determine, and you may not even had them from some of these distilleries, maybe not even heard of these distilleries, right? Because you're just not going to see them here in the United States. So I was focusing on blind tasting that and seeing if I could determine the casks and the age. And I think I did pretty good. On going through all those. It's a bar. Bars aren't really well lit. So, trying to look at it like this, like I'm doing with this one, a little challenging, but I was able to determine that one of them had a Brick cask, a wine cask. So anyway, had a fantastic time. There are apparently they're going to start doing these quarterly. And obviously we're coming on a sort of a post-COVID lockdown kind of a situation. So it's really, really nice. Again, that's another thing is for the last couple of years, not being able to attend whiskey events. Now people have their inoculations or whatever else. And now things are opening up. We're free to, go to events like this. And so it's kind of like we're coming out of a dark tunnel that we've been in for 2 years. So that was another thing to it as well. Absolutely fantastic. So they have ones going on in Seattle and New York and everything else. So if you want to know more about that, check out the Scotch Malt Whisky Society website of America, and then check in the events. So, all righty, enough about that. And I'm going on. I've become a big fan of the SMWS. Anyway, I thought they were going to ask you if you were Food Quig. Food Quig's a little north. People said that before. Food Quig's a little far north. He's up there in Canada. So, hey, Whiskey Straight Al, how you doing, man? Al is over in Ireland. So, hey, thanks for tuning in. All righty. So, this is peated Monia with the red wine cask. You get that red fruit notes. So, you get a little bit of that sort of chocolate covered raisin character to it. Nice waft of peat. It's a little sweet. Very powerful. Yeah, I'm a wine lover, but that doesn't necessarily immediately mean I'm going to like every wine cask. I don't like a wine cask whiskey if the whiskey's too dang young. This one it was distilled in 2008. No, excuse me. Distilled, they write the dates differently. It says 18/12/08, bottled 26/02/18. That's what it says. So they're not putting the year first. That's got to be the day, month, and year. I think it's 10 years old. I could be wrong. Anyway, fantastic whiskey. So this week I did the Bunnahabhain 12-year-old cask strength. Really, really liked it. Bill, the Whiskey Dictionary, also did a review of it. If you haven't seen his review, definitely want to check that out. I think he did a really, really good job. So two of us, it just coincidence. It wasn't planned. Within a week of each other, we both did a review of this whiskey, and we both really liked it. Fantastic review. And I'm going to show you just a little clip from Bill's video. One of the things I like, again, it wasn't planned. Both Bill and I did a non-serious review of the whiskey. Me, I was having these Biden moments of goofing up, and I said, you know what, screw it. Rather than keep recording and editing it out, I'll just go with it and make a joke out of it, and play around with the little goofs in my video. So that's how I did mine. He intentionally went goofy in his video, but that's a little clip from his review. So if you haven't seen it already, check out Bill's video. Eric's new screensaver. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Or I'm going to keep it in there. And anytime Bill shows up, if he ever shows up in the live stream, I'll play the video. So I added the music. He didn't have that music, so I added the music to that. Alrighty. Oops. Pushing the buttons. Alrighty. So let's get. Oh, you know what? I'm going to do a little reading. I'll do a little reading, and then I'm going to do a quiz. So talking about reading whiskey. Yeah, reading about whiskey while tasting whiskey. This is the textbook for my current study, World Atlas of Whiskey by Dave Broom. It's an okay book. It's a nice book. I like his style of writing, but it's got a lot of huge pictures, somewhat small print, and not a ton of information from which to draw from for making flashcards for preparing for an exam. I don't think it's a good textbook. I'm planning on writing one, but in the meantime, this is a book that's required reading. It's okay. It's an okay book. Nice big book, put on your coffee table, and nice casual reading while you're studying. This other book is for the level 3 exam. This is Charles MacLean. Charles MacLean, Spirit of Place, Scotland's Great Whiskey Distillery. So this is focused on just in Scotland, whereas the World Atlas obviously covers on the world of whiskeys. Charles MacLean and Dave Broom are on the committee for the Council of Whiskey Masters, which is why I'm guessing that that's the reason why they use their books. They're on the council, you got to use one of their books. This, I would say, has more information than Dave Broom's book, but of course, it focuses permanently on Scotland. I think this is a better written book, particularly focused on Scotland. Dave Broom's book does not take a consistent approach in covering material. Some sections of it, he provides a ton of material. And some of it, it just barely kind of wafts over it. It's not like a consistent approach to how he's writing a book. It's like he's just saying whatever he felt like writing. And I'm not trying to down the book. I'm just saying it's not all that great. So I'm going to read a little bit about Bunnahabhain Distillery before we get into our quiz. So you might want to pay attention. We're only going to have 5 questions on the quiz. But read a little bit about Bunnahabhain Distillery. I didn't base my quiz based on this book. I based it on, independent studies. So I'm putting more information into my videos and studying than it's really required for studying for the exam. All right. Bunnahabhain. Fruity, lightly maritime, hint of smoke. That's what Charlie has there. Charlie MacLean's book also has slightly larger print, which is nice. Bunnahabhain's situation. Bunnahabhain's situation on the north coast of Islay is among the most remote of any distillery in Scotland. Let me bring that comment section up here again. There you go. If you want to see a serious review of the Bunna 12 cast strength, check mine out. It's in my glass right now. Well, there you go. Check his out as well. Check out Alan's. Hey, hold on. I'm going to do this. Nope. Oh, I can't do it in this. I only have one window. I'd make you a mod, but I can't do it with this browser. All right. Bunnahabhain's situation on the north coast of Islay is among the most remote of any distillery in Scotland. Now, when you think about the remoteness, you think, in fact, if you go to the distillery, you go up to, you actually drive by Ardenhoe. Ardenhoe is sort of down below, somewhat near Kalila and Port Askeig. But it's a narrow road out in the boondocks, getting to the north end up there. And if you think of a tourist destination, like, hey, let's put a distillery where people can get to it as tourists. That was not on their mind. The reason why they put it where they put it is so that they could ship casks out straight from the distillery to their next destination. Now, most are going on trucks, and the trucks are going to the ports, and then the port to the ferries, and then the ferries take the trucks to the mainland, and then the bottle on the mainland. Some bottling from some distilleries is done on the island. Most, in fact, a lot of casks are shipped to the mainland, and they're aged in the mainland, and they're bottled on the mainland. So most are going from the distillery in a truck to a ferry to the mainland. But when they were originally established, they have docks. You go to the distillery, you can see a dock. Even if the dock's not being used, they still have these docks. So, but originally they would have gone straight from the distillery onto a ship or a boat, and then to wherever they're heading off to next. Also, the location of some of the distilleries is trying to be remote was a way of avoiding the tax man. Make it difficult for the tax man to get to you. So they weren't thinking about tourists when they chose their location. But if you visit the distillery, it has an absolutely beautiful view. I think Kalila and Bunnahabhain have the best vistas, and from both of them, you can see Jura. All right, let's move on. It overlooks the Sound of Islay, a narrow strait between Islay and Jura, and has a fine view of the neighboring island. The distillery founder was William Robertson, senior partner in the Glasgow firm, the whiskey brokers Robertson and Baxter, R&B, in conjunction with the Greenlee brothers, who owned Hazelburn Distillery in Campbelltown and the Lorne, Old Parr, and Claymore blends. I didn't mention that in my video, that they also owned Hazelburn Distillery. Now, Hazelburn Distillery, Hazelburn is now part of Springbank, but originally Hazelburn was a separate distillery, and the reason why Springbank does a Hazelburn is because they're in honor and the memory of that distillery. But it actually, at one time, was a completely separate distillery. The improbable site was chosen on account of R&B's close relationship with another Glasgow firm of blenders, Bullock, Lade and Company, who owned Kalila Distillery further down the Sound of Islay at Port Askeig, and had recently extended and improved it. See, this is what I do. I actually read out loud when I'm studying, and then see, I'll read a little bit, maybe half a paragraph, and then smell, taste. Think about what I've been reading. Right now, I usually actually drink something from the core range from the distillery while reading, because in terms of blind tasting, that kind of thing, it's best to drill into your head core range whiskeys. But tonight, wanted something a little bit peated, something a little sweeter, something a little more ABV, higher ABV, to sort of wash out the bourbons I was having earlier. The copious waters of Loch Stoinsha, Staoinshha. Stoinsha, I don't know. Sitting in hills above the site, who affected the choice because they could be used to cool the condensers. The distillery's processed water comes from springs in Margadale Hills. Work began on the site in 1881, and the distillery was commissioned in January 1883. At the dawn of the whiskey boom, a period of unprecedented growth in which blended Scotch rapidly replaced brandy as the most fashionable drink in England and the British Empire. All right, quiz for you, quiz question. He says, blended Scotch rapidly replaced brandy as the most favorable drink in England. Why? If you know the answer, Christopher Malloy, how you doing, man? Why did Scotch replace brandy as the favorable drink in England? And consider the time period, the 1880s. Can somebody put the answer in? If you know the answer, put the answer in there. I know he's not. I don't think he's going to say what the answer is, but if you know, put the answer in there. Yep, there you go. The grape blight. Can you get more? This is challenging. There are, I can think of like 30 different grape blights. Can you get more specific? Okay. Brandy grapes wipes out. Okay, you're getting the neighborhood. He says, was it disease with grapevines? No, it wasn't a disease. Well, yes. Well, sort of. It was a disease, but what caused it? There are a lot. That's like saying sickness. But why has there been shutdowns over the last 2 years? And why is everybody wearing masks? Because there's a sickness. Okay, that's just too general. It's because of COVID-19. There's something very specific. The French grape blight. Dude, the French grape blight. Okay, I'm going to give the answer. Okay, it was because of phylloxera. Phylloxera, which is a louse. So it wasn't just some virus in the air flying around. It was phylloxera. Phylloxera was the primary. There are a couple. There's downy mildew and the other was, but primary phylloxera. Yes. Yes. Well, if you study winemaking, you learn there's a lot of there's a lot of there are a lot of different diseases, mildews, and so forth. It's not just one or two. So it's phylloxera, was a louse, came from the United States. The grapevines here in the United States had a resistance to it. But when they brought Vitis vinifera, that's the genus of grapes over in Europe, to the United States, and then some dumbass had to say, hey, let's try doing a hybrid over in France. So when they tried to take some American genus like Vitis labrusca or something back to Europe, namely probably south of France, they figured it started probably in the Rhone region or the Languedoc-Roussillon area, the southern part of France. Back there, one of those little bugs, phylloxera, took a ride back to Europe. And because the vines there didn't have a resistance, it spread like wildfire in the 1880s, right? Actually, for the next 30, 40, 50 years, and it continued to be a problem until in Denison, Texas, a gentleman figured out, hey, you know what we could do? We could do a grafting American rootstock and put Vitis vinifera on top of it, and it made it more resistant. Didn't completely cure it, but it made it more resistant. All right. So, anyway, so that's it. Sounds like a dinosaur. No, it wasn't a dinosaur. Anyway, no, phylloxera. All right. So now you know, phylloxera. It's a little grape. So there's other ones. We have something called the glassy winged sharpshooter that spreads Pierce's disease. We have that going on. Anyway, there's all kinds of other diseases and bugs. Nematodes. All right, let's move on. Although R&B did not own any brands of blended Scotch at the time, the spirit to be made at Bunnahabhain was to be used for blending. So they were done single malts. As such, it was unpeated, since the fashion then was for lighter blends rather than the robust and smoky whiskeys that preceded them. The founding company was named Islay Distillers. This was changed to Highland Distilleries in 1887 when R&B acquired Glenrotha's distillery on Speyside. In the 1920s, R&B were commissioned by Berry Brothers and Rudd, the long-established wine and spirits merchant in London, to blend Cutty Sark, a blend in which they held 50% share, and Bunnahabhain became a key filling whiskey in key filling whiskey. In 1971, Highland acquired the famous Grouse, also blended by R&B. I got to say, Charlie McLean's book goes much more in depth than Dave Broom's book, larger print, so it's easier to read. My hearing's good, my smelling and tasting is great, my dancing is good, my singing is really good, but my eyesight is no bueno. I don't see it so good. Because of its popularity with blenders, Bunnahabhain was not made available as a single malt until the late 1970s. It is often described as Isla's mildest malt, although it is full of character with a rich texture and a sweet, very slightly smoky taste. I would say Bunnahabhain's got more going on than some of its near neighbors. So I don't necessarily know if I would agree with that sentiment. All right. Great pictures. A noble gateway. I'm not going to do a lot of rating. I only got like one more page, and then I think we're done almost. Whiskey historian Alfred Bernard. You hear that name coming up a lot. He traveled around, early historian, traveling around writing about Scotch whiskey. Visited Bunnahabhain in 1886 and wrote, "A fine pile of buildings in the form of a square and quite enclosed. Entering by the noble gateway, one forms an immediate sense of the compactness and symmetrical construction of the work. Along with the distillery, the buildings comprised houses, a school, and a village hall for the workforce. A pier was built. There's still a pier there. Out into the fast-flowing Sound. That's the water. A mile-long road was constructed up the steep cliff behind the distillery to join the track to Port Asgag." All right. I think that's it for this. All right. Yeah, that's it. So when I was there at Bunnahabhain Distillery back in June 2018, the distillery was in need of, I would say, some renovations. The 2020 edition of the Whiskey Yearbook states that they were undergoing renovations. So that's 2 years after I visited there. So I would imagine by now, I think they have a new visitor center. So it's probably been refurbished since I was there. All right. Malloy says Bunnahabhain is unpeated unless otherwise specified. And you have to know, but you have to know how it's being specified. Monya, unless you know that's Gaelic for peated. There you go. All righty. So let's get into our quiz. Only 5 questions. It's not going to be too difficult. The point is to review what we've already read, heard, or saw in the previous video. All right, here we go. Where is Bunnahabhain Distillery? Is it A, see up there, B, C, or it's supposed to be D down below. Did that get goofed? Oh, the image. Oh, yeah, no, it's good. I'm just sorry, it's just my eyeballs going on me. D. So is it A, B, C, or D? Which one of those indicates the location of Bunnahabhain Distillery? Oh, 60 Hertz says A. Fraser says A. Matthew says A. Pedantic 79 says A. Mauricio Pacheco says A. Fight for Sound says A. David Belcher says A. And the answer is, and the answer is A. The answer is A. There you go. And are the other distilleries. So you can see just south of Bunnahabhain is Ardhenhoe, Kalila. Ardhenhoe wasn't open when I was there. I think it's open for visit. I don't think they have any releases yet. B is Kilchoman. C is Bruichladdich. Of course, if you're familiar with Bruichladdich, they have a whiskey named Port Charlotte, so that's a giveaway. Of course, you have Bowmore, which I went over last time. And then Down at the bottom, Kildalton, you have Laphroaig, Lagavulin, and Ardbeg. Ardbeg is D on there. All right, next question. Bunnahabhain Distillery was founded in 1881 by William Robertson and A. Donald Johnson, B. John Johnston, C. William and James Greenless, or D. David Simpson. So if you're even if you didn't see my previous video, if you were paying attention to what I was just reading, we just covered this. Excuse me. Matthew NK, have a good night. David Belcher says C. So who was the other co-founder or co-founders of Bunnahabhain Distillery? And the answer is C. William and James Greenless. Next question. The name Bunnahabhain. Now this, I actually didn't cover this in my video, and it's also not in the book that I just read. But if you watched Bill Whiskey Dictionary, actually in my video, in which I shared my tour of the distillery, this is back in 2018, I mentioned the name of the distillery, but also in Bill's video, he talks about this. What does the name Bunnahabhain mean? What does the name Bunnahabhain mean? A, hopping fury rodent. So Bunnahabhain is Gaelic for bunny rabbit. B, the small promontory. C, the beautiful broad hollow by the bay. Or D, foot of the river. Which is it? Please let it be A. Hey, Dustin, how you doing, man? Dustin, if you have a Bunnahabhain you want to jump in after the quiz or something, let me know. I'll put a link down below. Derek says D. Fraser Beat says B. So here's he says, I thought it was mouth. I've seen this translated a couple different ways, to be honest with you. Here's the answer. Foot of the river. I've seen it translated a couple ways as mouth, and Charlie, he doesn't refer to it as a river. He refers to this as a sound, because it's not a river like, upstream, downstream, like you have going through land. It's a space of water in between Jura and Islay. So it's really not a river. And yet, if you were to search for the meaning of Bunnahabhain online, you'll see it's foot of the river. So it's really the mouth of the sound or the foot of the sound. Don't ask me why some say mouth and some say sound. I don't know. I don't speak Gaelic. I'm just saying that's what it's there. So if you thought it should say mouth, if you thought it should say sound of the sound of Islay is really what Bunnahabhain is. I'm just quoting what the sources said. So I put those in quote marks. Moy says, armpit of the sewer? What? You can tell me you don't like it? Not tonight. Busy. Okay, yeah, not a problem. Not a problem. Really, really like this whiskey. The smoke is pretty strong. The peat is really strong. It has like a nice dark chocolate character to it. Wine cast finish with peated whiskeys, I tend to get that chocolate covered raisin, but this is really a dark chocolate. And it's funny thing is, I'm thinking of, the recently reviewed Laphroaig 10 sherry cask finish, and that there's some similarities, but this isn't as spicy as the Laphroaig 10 sherry cask finish. Lost in translation over lots of time and lots of whiskey, without a doubt. Without a doubt. All right. Next. Bunnahabhain Distillery was founded in 1881, but production started in what year? I almost accidentally hit the end broadcast button. I'm glad I didn't. That would have sucked. All right. It was founded in 1881, but when did they actually start production? Donner Pass, how you doing, man? 1882, 1883, 1885, or 1887? David Belcher says B. So when did they start production? 1 year later, 2 years later, 4 years later, or 6 years later? Pedantic says A. Christopher Malloy says 1492. No, that's when Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue. And the earliest recording, and that's 1492 is 2 years before the earliest recorded writing that we know of the existence of Ushkaba, or whiskey. 60 Hertz says B. And the answer is 1883. 1883. All right, next. I think this is the last one. Bunnahabhain Distillery is currently directly owned by A. Edrington, B. Beam Suntory, C. Burns Stewart Distillers, or D. Diageo. Who currently is the direct owner? And the reason why I say direct owner is because companies own other companies that own other companies and can own other companies. And so it can kind of get a little deep there. So the direct, subsidiaries and all that kind of nonsense. So sometimes you're surprised at who actually owns something. So who owns the distillery? Who owns the distillery? The answer is Burns Stewart Distillers. Burns Stewart Distillers. Diageo owns Lagavulin and Kalila. I'm going to bring that up again. Beam Suntory owns Bowmore. Did they also own Lefroy? My mind is slipping on that one. All righty. Heinz something. Distill, yes. Christopher Muller, yes. So ultimately it's Distill, correct. That's why, but I said the direct owners is Burns Stewart. So Burns Stewart is owned by Distill. So if you were to Google it, you would see Distill, but you'd see that the direct owner is Burns Stewart. All right. All righty. Really, really nice. So the next couple of weeks, I am going to take a break. I'll probably still do live streams, but I won't be posting videos. I've got a lot this past week was super, super busy, super, super crazy. Friday, the end of Friday, the end I got off work, myself and my entire team at work, we couldn't wait for the day to end and the weekend. It was a good week, productive week, just insanely busy, and kind of stressful. So really glad for the weekend. So I'm kind of just chilling this weekend and reading and drinking a little bit of whiskey. Next couple of weeks, I'm going to somewhat go into chill mode. Because I'm not be putting any time into creating any videos for the next couple of weeks, but I'm still probably going to do live stream next Saturday. But what it will be on, I don't know. I might practice and do some blind tasting. I know I haven't decided yet, but I need to kind of chill and relax for a couple of weeks and just chill. I got to do it every once in a while. So anyway, I'll be in Texas next week, but hope you will still have a live. I'll probably still do a live stream. I just won't be pushing videos for the next couple of weeks. So, all righty. I hope everyone had a good time. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. Anyone watching on the replay, if you have any comments, have any questions, leave them down below. Give this video a thumbs up. Share with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, and other social networking channels. And hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. And let's go out with a little bit of rock and roll.